Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am back with another plastic surgery video. And I make videos every single week doing story times, reviews of different plastic surgery beauty procedures that I've had. If that's something you would want to watch, go ahead and subscribe. And let's go ahead and get started with this week's video. I'm going to be talking about endoscopic, canthoplasty, and eyebrow lift. And I'll be putting timestamps down below if you want to skip to different parts of the video, such as what the recovery is like, how I found the doctor, why I wanted it. You can find all that in the description down below. So one feature about myself that I always hated was I had very downturned eyes, and my whole life I have had it. I'm going to show some pictures here. It was very noticeable, very negative canthal tilt, they call it, which is when this outer part of your eye is below this inner part of your eye. So your eyes are angled like this, basically. And you can see it in pretty much every picture that's taken of me, even if it's far away. And I remember first noticing this feature about myself when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And I inherently knew it was unattractive because it is biology. Studies have shown that people find upturned eyes to be more attractive and downturned eyes to be less attractive. I even remember that all the boys I had crushes on in elementary school, they all had like super upturned eyes. So I used to go to the mirror when I was a kid and go like this to my eyes. I don't want to do it, but you know, when people like move their eyelids up. Not in a racist way though, I just wanted to look like I had upturned eyes. As I got older into my teenage years, I used to watch a lot of YouTube makeup tutorials to learn how to do winged eyeliner, because winged eyeliner can kind of give the illusion that you have upturned eyes. Although, you know, the closer you get, people are going to see it's not really upturned. And also, I was terrible at makeup. But I would watch these tutorials. Shout out to Elle and Blair Fowler, if anyone remembers them. I learned all my limited makeup skills from them in the early 2010s. And I would try so hard to do like this cat eye, the Ariana Grande winged eyeliner, but for some reason it almost always came out looking shitty. There was like a couple days here and there that I managed to do it well, and part of it was lack of technique. I simply am not very artistic when it comes to makeup. But another part of it was I did have somewhat hooded eyes, and they were hooded in the corners, which made it difficult to do eyeliner. Also, the hooding in my eyes was kind of asymmetrical. My eyes were like different shapes. And you could also see this in pictures, and I just hated it more and more as I got older. I would get eyelash extensions, and they would look weird because my eyes were so downturned. It's like the lashes were going down. And my left eye is a lot higher than my right eye, which also didn't help. Now, there are people who have downturned eyes, and they're still very pretty. Like, Britney Spears has downturned eyes. But the thing I noticed when I would like look at celebrities to try to see like, oh, who's pretty and still has downturned eyes, all their other features were attractive. And I didn't feel like that was the case with me. I feel like the rest of my face was kind of unattractive as well, so the eyes just stood out even more. The downturned eyes made me look tired, they made me look sad, and I hate to say it, but they made me look ugly. But like until recently, very recently, procedures to change your eye shape were not well known. I'm sure that they existed, this procedure, among the elite plastic surgery for celebrities. For example, Isa Gonzalez definitely had this surgery a long time ago. Bella Hadid had it a little bit more recently. But as we're getting into the late 2010s, early 2020s, now these procedures are a little more known to the general public. The first time that I learned about a procedure existing to change your eye shape was actually when someone from the show 90 Day Fiancé got it done. They got a PDO thread lift, and it was probably like Darcy from 90 Day Fiancé. This was in 2020. So PDO thread lifts are a temporary procedure, usually lasts a few months, no need for surgery. What they do is they use a needle to drag threads through your face, drag up the skin of the feature that you want lifted up. Sounds kind of medieval when you say it like that. And I did end up having that done in 2022. It was $1,400, and I went to a local medical injector lady. And I don't want to waste too much time talking about this because it was honestly a waste of time. I might make a separate video about it. But to summarize, at first I really liked the results. Although it did more for my eyebrows, it made my eyebrows higher than it did for my actual eye area. I did feel a bit like tense and stretched in the face for a while, and I noticed when I would wash my hair, I could almost feel there was extra skin there, because what they're doing is they're taking your skin and pulling it back, so I guess somewhere there's going to be a fold of extra skin somewhere around here. The PDO thread lift really only lasted, at least from what I could notice, about 2 weeks, and I followed the instructions exactly. I didn't sleep on my side, but I will say that one day I sneezed and I heard a pop in the threads. I don't know if that was the thread snapping, and then one day I was half asleep and I guess I kind of opened my mouth too wide and I could hear it pop again. But I can't really control that. If I'm gonna sneeze, I'm gonna sneeze. So that was not a great experience. I was not too educated on surgical solutions to droopy eyes. I kind of vaguely knew what a blepharoplasty was. But I did know this procedure has to exist because there's some celebrities that have clearly had it done. And I believe I finally learned what they were getting done from Lori Hill, the surgery YouTuber. Shout out to her, she educated me on so much. So I learned that the procedure that people get done to lift up downturned eyes is called a canthoplasty, or an endoscopic canthoplasty. And I believe endoscopic just means they have like a little microscope type device that they put in your head to see real closely. So canthoplasty is changing the tilt of your eyelids, and brow lift usually goes along with that. They lift up your brows to also create that lifting effect. So around last year, 2025, I decided to finally go about looking into this procedure. But since it's a lot less common than, say, a nose job, I was actually having a lot of trouble finding a plastic surgeon that does this surgery. The only doctor that I was aware of who did this surgery was Dr. Ko. He's kind of famous on Instagram, and that's because Lori Hill talked about him in a video. And I saw that Grimes posted about getting her surgery done with him. But I also knew that he charged 6 figures for his procedures, and that just wasn't realistic for me or most people. So I had this idea in my head that a canthoplasty was always going to cost 6 figures unless you go to another country. Which is not true, but I didn't learn that until later. So I used to see all these Turkish plastic surgery clinics on my For You page and Instagram. I can't imagine why. And I decided to DM one of them asking, hey, how much does an endoscopic canthoplasty cost? And they messaged me back quoting me $17,000 down to $15,000 after some kind of discount. But they were wanting to add other stuff too, even though I didn't really ask for it. For the canthoplasty itself, they were quoting me $7,000, but they also wanted to do all this other stuff. And the problem is, since it's in another country, they don't really do financing like how they offer here in the USA. Also, for all the people who go to foreign countries to do procedures, you have way more balls than me, because I'm just terrified that I'm going to show up there and the place is not going to exist. The address is going to lead to a dark alleyway or something. And if I need to sue them for fucking up my face, is that harder in another country? I don't know. I would think that it is. What if I can't fully communicate with my doctor in English and that leads to disastrous results? I just couldn't go through with it in another country. So I searched up canthoplasty in South Florida on Google, and not a lot of stuff came up. The only doctor that I found close to me was Dr. Sarah Avila in Miami, and I also sent out a little email for a consultation for a place in Orlando or Tampa or a couple other places like that, but they didn't respond to me, which is usually a bad sign. Dr. Sarah Avila did respond to me, so I went to her for a consultation, and what she told me was that canthoplasty is kind of a complicated surgery, and certain eyes wouldn't really react well to the surgery, I guess, because it can create like dryness in your eyes, depending on the anatomy of your face. And she also noticed that my face was asymmetrical, and I'm like, yes, I'm very aware. And she basically asked me if anything happened to me medically as a child that would cause that. And yes, I was dropped as a baby once, but I think my facial asymmetry was just due to genetics. She actually gave me a prescription to get a CAT scan done on my face to see if there was anything wrong with my bones or development. And she did say that she usually won't perform a canthoplasty on someone if there's more of 2 millimeters of asymmetry between your eyes. And I had 3.5 millimeters of asymmetry. So I went and got the CAT scan done, and the results were, bitch, your face is just crooked. No medical issues, you're just a crooked ass bitch. But the doctor still said she didn't want to do the surgery on me because my eyes were very prominent. I'm guessing maybe I had bigger eyes, or maybe they stick out a little bit, and they might get too dry if she were to do that surgery. She did recommend me 2 other doctors who might be willing to do it though. One of them, I checked his website and his social media, and I couldn't really find too many pictures of canthoplasties that he had done, and that worried me a little. The other one she recommended was Dr. Rad in Washington, D.C., and he did have a lot of photos of his work on his Instagram. So I scheduled a virtual consultation with him. It did cost $250. It was a Zoom consultation because I am from out of state. I had to submit a bunch of pictures of myself, and during the Zoom consultation, he mostly talked about how the procedure was done. He asked me about my goals. I said I wanted upturned eyes. And a couple days later, the office sent me a quote for the price, and it was about $20,000. And I was actually so happy because I thought he was going to say $100,000 like Dr. Ko. And they actually offered payment plans for up to 2 years. They said they could take a couple thousand off of the procedure if I agreed to my before and afters being posted on social media. Obviously, I didn't have a problem with that. And they said they book about 4 to 6 months out. But I had to schedule it for a little bit later than that because I had to finish my master's degree first. So I scheduled it for April of 2026. They don't give you an exact date, more of an approximation until you get closer to it, and then you can book your flights and all that. Also to keep in mind, it's a little more than $20,000 or $17,000 because there's an anesthesiologist and there's a hospital cost because the surgery is done in a hospital. So in the email that I got, my quote was $3,599 for hospital facility fee and $1,498 for anesthesia fee. And I have had plastic surgery before, but it was always in the office, never in a hospital, so that was something different. I had to speak to the hospital. They would call me here and there and ask me my weight and height and stuff. So I applied for care credit, I did a payment plan for 2 years, and paid 50% of the cost of the surgery to reserve the date. But since I was from out of town, I would still have to pay for hotel and flights. They also suggested me to hire a nurse to stay with me for the first day after surgery, but I said, no, I'll just bring my mom, it'll be fine. More on that later. As it led up to the appointment, I had to get surgical clearance from my primary care doctor where they take your blood pressure, take your blood, basic stuff like that. You have to do more stuff if you get the surgery when you're older. And I already knew this was going to be annoying because my primary care doctor sucks and almost no one there speaks English, but I'm too lazy to change it. So I went for the clearance appointment. The nurse or whatever was so unnecessarily rude to me, even though I'm nothing but polite for them. I remember I brought them papers to fill out and this lady shoving the papers in my face being like, this doesn't look right. What's a canthoplasty? Like, shut the fuck up. I want to punch her so bad. They did blood work. I asked them to fax the forms over to the surgeon's office, but of course they didn't do it right. They kept sending the form to them blank, and I had to call them 4 times and ask them 4 separate times to ask them to resend it before they finally sent it the right way. So just make sure you're clear with your doctor and nurses or whatever when you get your clearance appointment, that everything has to be filled out, because sometimes these doctors love to take shortcuts. About a week before my flight to Washington, I did another Zoom pre-op with the doctor, and I did mention that I was prone to headaches, and they highly suggested again that I get a nurse for the first day, a private nurse to stay with me in the hotel. It was about $500 to stay for 12 hours. But to me, it just sounded unnecessary because I've had surgery before. I've had a nose job, I've had liposuction, I've had wisdom tooth removed, and I was never in pain enough to require a nurse. He's like, okay, well, we'll talk about it with our office. And the next day, the office called me and was like, basically, if you don't hire the nurse, we're not doing the surgery. So obviously, I agreed to do it at that point. I was told to fly in 2 days before the surgery and stay for at least a week after the surgery. So the day of the flight, I get to Washington, D.C., and I stayed at the Homewood Suites, very close to the doctor's office. But I remember the room was facing another building and got almost no sunlight, so it was a little depressing in the hotel room. But otherwise, it was a pretty good hotel. I had an in-person pre-op appointment with the doctor 2 days before the surgery, so I went to that. And Dr. Rad's office is very interesting. It's like, looks like you're inside of a tree. The walls are covered in what looks like tree bark. I don't know what this is called. I also noticed everyone at the office was very calm and spoke in this very soothing voice that just made me want to fall asleep. They took a bunch of pictures for my before pictures and a video where I explained my aesthetic goals. The next day, April 8th, was an off day, no appointments or anything, and the surgery was not until April 9th the next day. So I took this chance to just explore Washington a little bit. I haven't been to DC in 20 years. Cherry blossoms had just about finished blooming. I also picked up my painkillers and anti-anxiety medication from the pharmacy. The night before the surgery, I was extremely anxious. My stomach hurt. I did not sleep very much. The next morning was surgery day. I had to be there pretty early, I believe 2 hours before the time of the surgery. So we took an Uber to the hospital, and again, they try to create like a soothing environment there. The hospital had this piano playing. We signed in with the receptionist, and when we mentioned who my doctor was, she had nothing but good things to say about him, which I thought was a good sign. They gave me a buzzer to let me know when my surgery room was ready, like I'm at a fucking Olive Garden. And when it buzzed, it only took maybe 30 minutes. They brought me to a room where I changed into the hospital gown and, of course, the famous grippy socks. Some nurses came in to insert the IV in my arm, and they asked me some questions. The doctor came in too, introduced himself to me and my mom. Last thing I remember was a nurse injected me with something yellow, and she said that I wouldn't remember anything after that, and indeed I did not. The doctor's office actually posted a video of me from around this time, and I'm just looking incredibly doped up. It's kind of funny. The next thing I remember, my surgery was over. I was slowly waking up and coming into consciousness. My mom was in the room, and she took this video of me. My head hurts. My bloody, wrapped head is laying down while I'm moaning in pain, talking about how my head hurts. And the headache was really, really fucking bad straight out the gate. Honestly, I was not expecting that, even though they did warn me. Because I was just thinking, oh, I've had surgery before. It was not a big deal. I didn't have a big headache. I was still able to do basic tasks. But this was another story. I'm not gonna lie, the pain was an 8 out of 10. I guess, obviously, because the surgery was around my forehead area. The nurse picked us up. I remember her buckling my seatbelt in. I'm pretty sure they had to wheel me out in a wheelchair out of the hospital. And she drove us to the hotel. And from there, all I remember is writhing around in the bed in extraordinary pain. I vomited at least 3 times. I could not eat anything. I could barely even drink water. And chewing was extremely painful, out of the question. I kept shifting and shifting around in this bed, trying to find a comfortable position, but it was impossible. There was these wraps around my head, these bloody drains hanging out of my head like disgusting Christmas ornaments. And worst of all was this ear-splitting, painful headache. I cannot emphasize how bad my head hurt. The nurse would give me medication every once in a while, and she would wake me up to give me the medication too. They would give me oxycodone for when I was feeling in extreme pain, Tylenol, and Advil. And she would also spoon feed me soup like I was a little baby. The oxycodone helped me fall asleep in maybe 1 hour increments here and there before I would wake up in intense pain again. But I really didn't feel like any of this medication was fully taking away the pain or even really touching the headache pain. And I realized in that day why the doctor had insisted on me having a nurse. The surgery was definitely more intensely painful than any other thing I've ever done. I really felt like my head was a bowling ball, and every time I lifted up, it was just so strenuous. Even when I was laying down, it really didn't stop hurting. And the vomiting was also obviously unpleasant. I wish this room had a scale so I could see how much I weighed during those days, because I definitely lost some weight from not eating. I mean, before this trip, I was so delusional. I thought I'm gonna go to all these interesting restaurants in DC. I looked up a bunch ahead of time and had all these ideas for what I was gonna eat. I did not know what I was in for, okay? I could not even choose saltine crackers after this surgery. I really wanted to vlog the whole experience, but I was in so much pain, I only filmed this video. So I'm now 24 hours out from surgery, and I feel like complete shit. It was very painful waking up from this. I've had a nose job before, I've had my wisdom teeth out, I've had lipo, and none of them even comes close to how painful this is. I woke up, I had a nurse come to my room for the first 12 hours to help me, and very hard to find a comfortable position to try to sleep because of these bags full of blood and this thing wrapped around my head, and it's very tight, and I'm already prone to headaches, so I just have like a really bad headache. I slept maybe like 1 hour on and off here and there, and whenever I wake up I'd be in so much pain, and they gave me Tylenol, ibuprofen, and oxycodones, and none of them really helped that much of the pain. The only thing is the oxys helped me go to sleep, and that was about it. So yeah, this is pretty much not an easy surgery at all. I've been in extreme pain for like 24 hours now, and yeah, I'm hoping that they take this thing off. They were supposed to do it today at 3, but he moved the appointment to tomorrow at 3, which kind of annoyed me because I really want this taken off. It's really annoying to lay on. And yeah, that's pretty much it for day 1. I will keep you updated. After 12 hours, the nurse left the hotel room, and from there on out, it was just me and my mom. I had the schedule of different medication I had to take at different times, including painkillers and antibiotics. And my mom also had to drain the blood from the drains, push the air out of the drains so that they could continue to collect blood. Day 2 was April 10th, and I was supposed to have a post-op appointment in person where the doctor took off the dressing and took out the drains, and I could not wait for it. I felt like this horrible headache was being made worse by the dressings and the drains, and I felt like I couldn't sleep because you can't really sleep on your side with the drains and the dressings flopping around. My mom told me that the nurse told her that this appointment was being moved to Monday, 3 full days later. And I almost had a mental breakdown when I heard that, because all I could think about was how much I was looking forward to that appointment. I thought this appointment was going to make me be in so much less pain, and all I could think about was how much pain I was in. There was really no way in my mind that I could deal with the drain and the dressings for 3 more full days. And no one really explained to me why that appointment was canceled and moved to a different day, which annoyed me even more. I don't remember much about day 2, except I was just in so much pain and vomiting. This like green bile vomit spewing out every time I ate. It was so gross. I brought these video games to play and these books to read, and I was in so much pain I couldn't even lift my head off the pillow to read a book. I had no energy to play video games. I was just laying there in this dark room with no sunlight. I couldn't shower. I was greasy. I was sweaty. The only thing I did all day was I tried to sleep, and if I couldn't sleep, I would just scroll on my phone. And I remember this was a few months ago when the news came out about Haley Beck, the teacher-student scandal. So all I did all day was watch TikToks about Haley Beck and read the text messages in the police report. It was the only thing that made me laugh and brought me joy. I was just suffering so bad. I even asked if I could go to the ER because I was in so much pain. I do know that somehow at some point my mom got in contact with the surgical coordinator and she talked to me on the phone. I don't remember what she said, but I guess I kind of went off on her a little bit. Not in a rude way, but just saying I thought this was going to be so much less painful. I'm really struggling right now. And then the doctor actually called and spoke to me. He said that the nurse had told him that I was refusing medications and that was unacceptable and I needed to take my medication. That's why I was in pain. And I honestly do not remember refusing medication. I think maybe I was sleeping and she tried to wake me up to take it and I didn't want to. But again, my memory is not entirely clear on that. So he was sort of strict in telling me you need to follow these rules, but he wasn't mean or anything, so I said, okay. And from then on out, I took my medication a lot more frequently. He said there's no need for you to go to the ER, you just need to take your medication. I did ask about the appointment being changed, and he said the one for today, which was Friday, did get canceled. He didn't say why, but he agreed to do the appointment to take the dressing and the drains out on Saturday instead, so tomorrow, instead of Monday, and I was very grateful for that. The pain continued to be bad. It just made it impossible to focus on anything else, like I said. And I think that not having anything else to focus on was just making me think about it more. That night, I did feel slightly better, enough to actually get up on my pillow and play on my laptop. I also stopped throwing up. Big advancement. The next morning was day 3, and I felt a little worse than last night for whatever reason. Kind of fluctuated throughout the day. As the day went on, I felt a little better. I think knowing that appointment was coming also gave me a lot of relief. So I got to the appointment. The building was actually closed because it was a Saturday, so the doctor had to lead us through a back door. He sat me down, he took off the drains and the dressings. Such a relief. Here's some pictures of me when I first got it off. And my hair does look crazy still. I wasn't able to wash it quite yet. It did feel very weird when they took the drains out because you feel like there's a tunnel in your scalp and they're pulling stuff out of it. But I had taken pain meds in preparation for that. So it wasn't really painful, just very bizarre. And I did admit to the doctor, I underestimated how painful this surgery was going to be based off my other less serious surgeries, so that was my mistake. Overall, he said I seemed to be doing much better and my next appointment would be on Tuesday. Now that the dressings were off and the drains were out, I finally got a first real look at my eyes and my eyebrows, and I was still extremely swollen, especially my left side, more so than my right. But I could see that my eyebrows were much higher up and my eyes were definitely more upturned and more symmetrical, so I love that. And I was actually really nervous for some reason that my results were going to settle and not be as dramatic, because I liked the way they looked minus the swelling at this moment. I was afraid they were going to go down like the PDO threads did, but the doctor did tell me it's surgical, it's a lot different than the threads, it's not going to all fall down one day. After that, I went to the hotel and I was so excited that the stuff was finally off my face and I was able to nap, but the fucking fire alarm went off in the hotel, the whole entire hotel, and everyone had to go downstairs and stand there. It was so dumb. Someone's food was burning or something. Big ol' waste of time. Then we went back inside, and I was finally able to shower and wash my hair. My hair was an absolute dumpster fire, as you can see here. It was matted down with this rust-colored substance from the surgery. I don't know if it was iodine or something, and blood. There was blood as well, clotted in my hair. It was a very long shower with a lot of shampoo having to wash that all out. Then I finally laid down and I felt so refreshed. My headache was finally manageable. I was able to actually use my computer and sit up, thank God. Day 4, I was still laying around in bed. It was actually making me depressed because the room was so dark. Kind of affected my mental health a little bit, so I went on a short walk at one point. My period started, so great, awesome. Day 5, I woke up starving. I'd been eating nothing but oatmeal and soup for days, and my body was finally rebelling against that. I still couldn't open my mouth very wide or chew too much, but it was getting a little less painful. The doctor explained to me that the reason that happens is because some of the muscles that you use to chew are like right here. Like if you chew, you could see, or if you open your mouth, you could see it like pop out a little bit there, which is why it was so affected, because the surgery was in this area. The headaches were mostly gone by this point. It was replaced by this tight feeling around my forehead, kind of an uncomfortable pulling sensation. And the stitches in my scalp itched. They did like some incisions, I believe, here, here, and here. I might show some videos here of where those scars are. Day 6, my face still had that really tight feeling. The best way I can describe it is, you know when you pet a cat's head too hard and their eyes go back a little? It feels like that, but all the time. Day 6 was the first day that I felt good enough to explore the city and walk around, so we went to the Smithsonian History Museum. I did walk around pretty slowly and, take seats when I was uncomfortable because I wasn't 100% okay yet. My face definitely looked crazy, like I probably looked pretty special to the people walking around the museum. That same day, I had a quick post-op appointment where the doctor took a video of me answering some questions about the procedure. And as that day went on, I truly realized, wow, my eyes look so different. I actually had that almond shape to my eyes that I've been so desperate for my whole life. Decades of hating my eye shape, and the eye shape that I hated was just gone, erased, completely different. The hooding was gone, the downturn slant of my eyes was gone. They're definitely upturned now, and minus the swelling, it actually looked very natural. So every time I passed a mirror, I would narcissistically stare at myself in it because I couldn't stop looking at it. It's really hard to explain the sensation of when you spend so many years hating something and then it's just gone and it's changed to something that you like so much. It's a really satisfying feeling, and I can see why people get addicted to surgery. On day 8 after the surgery, we flew back home, and side note, the DC airport sucks. It's the worst airport I've ever been in. It's crowded and it stinks. A couple days later, I went back to work, and people did notice my face had changed because it's not really subtle, and I didn't want it to be subtle. I wanted my eyes to look completely different. Changing something like your eye shape, it's kind of bound to be noticeable because the first thing people look at when you talk to them is your eyes. Several people told me it looked like I was wearing makeup, and that was several people saying that, not just one person. As the days continued to go by, the dissolvable stitches in my scalp started to come out. And again, the scars are hidden under your hairline, so you don't see them, unless you're playing with your hair and searching for it. I did notice hair falling out a little bit from these areas where the scar is, which freaked me out a little, but it's not really noticeable to anybody else. A few days later, at this point it was maybe 2-3 weeks out from the surgery, I did drink alcohol, which was a mistake even though I tried to balance it with water. I did get a massive headache that gave me PTSD of the first few days after the surgery. Thankfully it went away when I took Excedrin, but that's just something to be aware of. I would not drink for at least a month after this procedure. So the headaches were gone, but this tight feeling of like being pulled back on my scalp and my head, that was a lot more persistent, and that went away very slowly. Didn't fully disappear until maybe a month after the surgery, so I was taking Tylenol multiple times a day to just kind of try to get rid of that feeling. I also noticed when I laid down, I would get this throbbing sensation around my temples, so I would sleep on my side to muffle that sensation, and because it weirded me out, that also took about a month to go away. My scalp, especially near the stitches, it felt numb for maybe 2 weeks, and my skin still does feel a little numb right here, but it doesn't affect my daily life. I don't really care. I had some puffiness around my under eye area for about a month as well, which I actually liked because I've always had hollow under eyes and I would get filler under here, but after the surgery, I feel like I don't need filler under there anymore. After about a month and a half, all the swelling is gone. I was able to see my final results, and I am so in love with them. I did my makeup, and the winged eyeliner was way easier to do without my eye hooding. I took a bunch of new pictures because I could not stop looking at how different they were and how happy it made me. To not look so tired and sad all the time, to actually look refreshed and awake and happy, and have a more aesthetically pleasing major feature on my face. I'm honestly astounded at what a difference it made. It's pretty much exactly what I wanted, and by far it's my favorite cosmetic procedure out of anything I've ever done, and I really love my lip filler, so that's saying something. My only regret with the surgery is I wish I had done it years earlier. I feel like I wasted so many years being unhappy with my eye shape, which is a very noticeable part of your face, and in my opinion, it's one of the most important factors in what makes you attractive. So yeah, that is everything about my surgery. If you have any other questions about this, leave a comment down below. I feel like I tried to answer everything that people might have to ask about this, but maybe I missed something. But yeah, that's about all for this video. Make sure to leave a comment down below and make sure to subscribe if you want more plastic surgery reviews every week.